Passover dick with drums. Let's go.
Welcome to Behind the Sins, presented by CinemaSins.
Welcome to Behind the Sins, a weekly look at everything going on inside the world of CinemaSins. I'm Aaron Dicer, and I'm joined as always by Jonathan Watkins.
Hello, hello.
And Danae Hughes.
I'm in the closet.
We write for CinemaSins and TV Sins and do various other things inside the CinemaSins universe as well. Are you speaking literally or metaphorically, Danae?
I'm literally in a closet.
Yes, you are. You are.
Well, metaphorically in the closet even... Oh, never mind. Yeah, you're literally in the closet.
You know, we're probably all kind of metaphorically in the closet about something. It's not like we share everything with everybody, but that term has definitely become, meant to mean sexual orientation in the closet, usually.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is we all have skeletons in our closet.
And see, that's in the closet as well. Yeah, so there is kind of that understanding of... being in the closet. But
and Danae also literally has skeletons in the closet.
Yeah, there's at least one skeleton in there, I hope. You don't seem like a blobby mess.
You're talking about the one that's inside?
Yeah.
It's inside my body?
Yes.
Okay,
that's
that's
There's
okay.
also something inside her body in her closet.
I'm afraid.
Happy Easter.
She's boned.
Well, when this comes out, it'll be past Easter, so we hope you had a good Easter.
Yeah, no, that's true as well. It is definitely interesting times, whether it's Easter or not. We are all
this will
going
come
through
out. This will come out after the Sincast, by the way. I have to tell you, man, this week's Sincast, I cannot wait till you two get to hear it. It's the weirdest matchup. They're doing the brackets still. Mm-hmm. And it is the weirdest matchup ever. It is Paddington 2 versus The Wolf of Wall Street. I won't give away who wins because you guys haven't listened.
That's an easy one for me.
Oh, my God. And I don't know if Barrett's going to keep the title I suggested, but I suggested Paddington Does Cocaine was the title of the episode. So.
Nice. I'm now envisioning that first scene of Wolf of Wall Street, but with Paddington instead of Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
And it's the
Matthew
worst thing ever. It's the worst
him.
thing that's ever been in my mind. So... we should probably move on.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it is. We hope everybody's well. We hope you're doing well. We hope you and your family are safe, that you're staying home. We're all getting through this together, and we'll continue to do this podcast remotely to maybe give you a little bit of entertainment, to take your mind off things here for a little bit.
Helps us, too, I think. So.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I don't see any reason to wait. You guys want to get into it?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do the SinSide Scoop.
What's he building in there?
I've got a secret. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
This is a true story.
Going to take a look at the videos from the week, the process of sending them, how we felt about the stuff we were sending in general. We'll kick it off with TV Sins, going all the way back to X-Men, the animated series. This is a two-part pilot for this show involving, I think it's something of the Sentinels or something is technically the title of the two-parter.
Night of the Sentinels, I believe, is what it was called.
Night of the Sentinels.
Yes.
This was a Hughes Watkins script, so Jonathan and Danae writing on this one. What is your experience with this show? Like, did you watch X-Men the animated series?
I watched the heck out of this show. This is one of those that I loved when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's right in your age range because my brother loved this show too. You and my brother are about the same age, and which is about 6 years behind me or whatever. I kind of missed this, so I watched it almost secondhand through him because he was always watching it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Although at that time, I was not in any way, shape, or form like aware of the X-Men. I was never a comic book reader. I knew Superman and Batman. I knew who they were, but it was like anything beyond that I was kind of unaware of. So I was like, what are these interesting characters, kind of thing. But I never really sat down and watched it.
Yeah, I guess I was about 18 when it came out. You were probably 19. So, because it was 94.
Yeah.
And I was a comic book reader, but I wasn't really watching animated shows. I think Batman, the animated series, might have been something I was occasionally watching at the time, but I was just like, I'm not watching animated shows. I'm 18 years old. I'm going to college, and but I would catch it every now and then. I had roommates that would watch it, and my younger sister watched it occasionally, so I would catch episodes of it just because I read the comics. But honestly, X-Men was not a comic I was really into at that time. I didn't really start getting into X-Men until probably the aughts. when the movies started coming out was kind of when I started reading those comics. But this and Spider-Man were on about the same time, the Spider-Man animated series.
Yeah.
This was the first time I remember.
Oh, this was actually 92. This wasn't 94. Sorry. So I was going to say,
I thought it was before I went off to college.
Spider-Man was 94.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead,
in the things that I watched, it was like Disney, My Little Pony. So everything was really glittery and girly. And like this was the first time there were like different female characters to kind of try to relate to, or even the whole idea of a superhero for me. Batman, I think, was another one that I really enjoyed. But even then, you know, and you've got like, it's not quite the same feel as X-Men. X-Men is sort of like, you've got this team of people that are trying to save the day, whereas Batman's more like, Batman is trying to stop a villain in this episode, and he's trying to stop a villain in this episode. So it's a little different feel, whereas X-Men had this like group dynamic. So it was really interesting because I'm watching this to Cine It, and I have not seen X-Men since I was a kid. And so I sit down, and as soon as the music started, I was like, hell yeah!
That is the best music. That is one of the best.
I was so
let's
charged.
just go there right away. How did neither of you take away a sin for the opening theme? Like, I figure if there was one guarantee, it was that opening theme would get a little bit of a sin removal.
I don't know. Okay, so the sin removal thing. Well, first of all, I should say I was the lead writer. This is my first time being a lead writer. So
I honestly didn't know that people loved it that much. I thought it was cool, but like I didn't watch the show really when it was on, like I said. So I'm not on X-Men animated series forums. I have no idea how impactful this was to people. I didn't realize it was to me it's like crack it's like crack nostalgia.
You are not alone.
Nostalgia crack.
You are not alone.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We screwed up. That's all.
It was amazing. But at the same time, like I struggle back and forth with this like part of me that goes, do we always have to give sins back?
No.
Do we have to do
we
that?
Definitely don't.
And the answer is no. We're sinning things, and also there's something fun about trolling you guys. I mean, going into the comment section and seeing everyone raging about it, I really feel like I'm turning to the dark side. I've talked about this for a couple of episodes, but I'm actually kind of starting to smirk about it. And it wasn't purposeful or anything. It was just something we didn't do. So
I have a feeling percentage-wise, I probably give the least amount of sins back. I would guess. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe Jeremy. But Aaron gives like 40 cents back a script, and then we have to trim it down.
100%.
You know, and I would say actually Barrett's probably next that I've noticed when I'm writing with people.
No, I agree. Barrett gives stuff back.
And I think
to
the
you.
main reason I don't is because, like, especially when I'm writing like TV send scripts with Aaron, like I know Aaron's going to give sends back, so I'm like, well, I don't even need to do that.
Well, and for me, I think as I sit here and I sort of wonder why I wouldn't think about that, I've really been working on figuring out how to send something.
Right.
So, and then knowing what the narrator would decide to give sends back for. For example, in Mulan, he gave a send back for the annoying guy standing there for his picture to be painted. Like, he stood like that for so long, and that's impressive. So the narrator gives a send back for that, and the fans rage because we didn't give a send back for this amazing music. And that feels more on brand to me. And then I'll watch other ones where I know someone wrote on it, like, oh, you know, this is just like Scott Pilgrim, for example, we'll talk about later on. Tons of sends back for Scott Pilgrim.
No, I didn't even write on that one. That wasn't even me.
I know. So I don't think I have a clear perspective, but I do give them back from time to time. I just didn't for this one.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just
mean, you gave them all back recently.
It is literally the only thing I know about the show is that the theme song is amazing. And so in the
it is pretty good.
The comment or the description for the video, I actually put something about having the most amazing theme song or whatever.
I did that in the tweet too.
So
I tweeted it out. We just didn't. Whatever.
No, it's fine.
Whatever.
We also made fun of Gambit. Whatever.
Oh my God. Let's get into that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into the sins. Since you guys send it, I will kind of go through some of my favorites. I really, really love does everyone have red hair? Because it's not something you would necessarily notice until it's pointed out to you, and I was just like, oh my goodness, you're not wrong. Like, was that just the easiest color?
The comment section was fun on this one. Cade said, when you pointed out, does everyone have red hair, it made me realize how many characters have red hair. And then Rousey says, well, technically speaking, it is a mutation. That is so funny.
That's good. That is good.
And then someone else in the comments they're like, listen, I have red hair. I've been struggling with this my whole life. Are you making fun of red hair? So I had to go in there as just Danae and be like, no, not making fun of red hair, making fun of the animators for making everyone have red hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they couldn't color. They didn't have like a different.
Yeah. It was like a Control-C, Control-V situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had red hair for like the first 4 or 5 years of my life. So
Hey, I will say which we didn't really get onto that because I mean it's 1992, but I mean animation is a little rough in this.
Yeah.
I will say, but I will say I enjoyed it so much. That's become my like lunchtime watch because it's it's on Disney Plus.
Is it really?
Oh yeah, they're all on Disney Plus. Yeah,
so it's just
Heck
that's an easy like 20 minutes while I
That's
eat a
cool.
sandwich or something. I'll watch
Love
like
it.
an episode of that, and the Spider-Man show is on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
so
That's cool.
I watch those, and yeah. Anyways,
the return of the Wah Wah Gaga in this script.
So I mentioned that I was trying to get it in on a main script, and I was wrong. It was actually this one.
Okay.
And I was the lead writer on it, so I just put it in.
That's right.
I didn't have to go through anybody. I guess
Yeah,
it
but
did
neither
pass
Chris or I
shadow
said-
phase. So
Chris and I both were like, yeah, that's cool.
yeah, you were so helpful putting the script together. So thank you.
My favorite part of that sin, which is a great sin by the way, is the call Lilu part of that sin.
Yeah.
Because it's just so perfect. So I love that. Heroes who womanize and have a good grasp on insurance policies made me giggle.
That was a few different things, I believe, and then we ended up with that.
Yeah, that was
I can't
great.
Remember.
And then
Yeah.
the entire series of following the thought progression that ended with, which reminds me that I'm not entertained by this show, was just really fun. I love that. I love those like combo sins where they just kind of build on each other. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, like bringing in the mixed media on that one was a lot of fun. We actually had that thought after we saw the edit, and you're hearing him deliver it, and in my mind, I'm seeing the pictures of the things I was thinking of, so then I just wrote in and said, "Hey, can we try something here?" And then we tweaked it a little bit because one of the images they actually found all of the images that I wanted them to find and added their own, like the meme of the dog that's like in the burning room. That says, "This is
everything's fine. Yeah,
but like with the toilet paper on the
yeah.
they had toilet paper on they did all that stuff. But I very specifically wanted the visual of the sheriff,
The mole.
with the mole
from
from the
Robin Hood
sheriff,
Men in
because that
Tights,
was
yeah.
from another Robin Hood movie. So we asked that to be tweaked, but that did turn out really, really good.
Yeah,
In
I
fact, I
loved it.
actually I sent it to Jeremy just so he could see what it looks like, because
Yeah.
I'm sure as you're narrating, you have no idea.
Yeah.
And then
it turned out
finally, sounds like you're choking on a rutabaga. For whatever reason, when you can throw in something
Oh
specific
my
like a
God.
rutabaga, just slayed me.
That guy's voice
Right?
It was crazy. I
It
mean,
was
it was
so
just like that
weird.
was the take. They were like,
Yeah.
"You nailed it, man."
What a weird voice performance. Yeah. I don't know. But I loved that.
I mean, I guess afternoon Saturday morning television, maybe they're not really they're not getting a lot of takes there, but that was odd. And then the reading of the guy who played Wolverine, whose name I forget now, but we put it in the script, something Dodd, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He sounded just like Will Arnett's Batman. Literally sounded just like that. So
yeah.
I put in that joke about, who knew?
Which will not be the last time we mention Will Arnett's Batman in this series of videos that we're talking about today.
That's funny. I
There's
guess
going
I'll
to be some repeats.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the only other thing I want to talk about was the Gambit thing because it was all over the comments, and I love those sins. I really do, because Gambit is the weirdest. Like, he's, by the way, I think is my brother's favorite from the animated series.
He's a lot of people's favorite
loved
character.
Gambit. And then when you start to think of not what Gambit's powers are, but the way that he chooses to use them, it's just
and that's what we're
weird.
sending, because and a few people jumped on that in YouTube, on the YouTube comments. I noticed they mentioned that, because people would be like, he doesn't just throw cards, and then so he's like, that's not what they're saying. They're saying that the fact that he chooses to throw cards.
Yeah, it's just such a weird one.
Well, I disagree. I love Gambit. I think that
most people do.
But I obviously I thought it was a fun perspective for the narrator to take
Yeah.
that approach of hating a character. That's kind of a fun thing to sort of like
And
take.
I don't hate him. He's fine. I mean, he's not my least favorite X-Men or anything, but like he has such an erratic fan base.
If you had the power to kinetically charge something to kind of give it a bomb power and then throw it, what else would you do that is lightweight and has 52 charges? But a pack of cards, and you could flip those things pretty far. You get pretty good at it. People do card tricks and stuff. To me, it always was pretty rad. What I didn't remember about Gambit was that he had black eyes and red pupils. I did not remember. He looks terrifying, and then he has that weird, and several of the X-Men do, and you just kind of forget this over the years, but their outfits is where like his jaw and the side of his face is sort of covered in that black half cowl thing, and then his hair sort of sticks out of the top. It's just a strange, it's an animation choice, it's a stylistic choice, but he looks absolutely terrifying. And then there's this thirsty girl like flirting with him at the mall.
That's what I was just about to ask. If that was your sin about the dripping with lust, I think maybe was the phrase you used.
Dripping with lust. She had her ass all out. It was like she was ready to go. By the way, I wrote in another one of a fan's name into the script. Calling her no name was very specific because we have somebody on Discord who that's not my name, and so I wanted to. And actually, after I did it, I was like, so I kind of like wrote you into script, but I made you this thirsty, like real, like hot, bothered person. So hopefully you're not. I'm not saying anything about you specifically.
We also have to talk about how people thank Danae for the period sim.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. I didn't expect that, but I wrote even a longer kind of moment to that, and we just sort of cut it down to an also sin because there was a couple things going on in that moment. And yeah, we got a comment on Twitter about that, so that was cool.
Yeah.
Just like a thanks for the representation. This is exactly what it's like, and that is the exact pose that you go into whenever you have your period. You're just like, why is this happening to me? And even that moment, Jubilee actually says several other things that all perfectly align with your first period.
Yeah.
So
I also love the part where I believe Danae wrote this. I know I didn't. It could have been Chris, I guess, but I think it was Danae, where it said something like, I love how this team unites and everybody loves everybody. And then it's like, except Morph, and he died.
Yeah.
Well, and Morph was like such an obvious red shirt because like he's barely even in the comic. Like
I didn't even remember him at all.
He dies very early on in the comics too. So
okay. I had no recollection of him at all. In fact, when I saw him, I was like, who is that guy?
Yeah.
I wrote a sin that I don't think I ended up keeping, but now I wish I sort of would have figured out how to make it work, where Jeremy would have thought that was Mystique. Like, like played into the whole thing, like Mystique looks dumb or something. But then because Morph ends up dying, I think I took it out of my script.
And I should mention, because somebody listening to this will think, I don't want them to think I'm an idiot. Morph is actually not the character's name in the comics. It was a different name. I do not remember what it is now. They used that character type for the character of Morph.
I believe the character in the comics was named Murph, I think.
Yes, that's it. Exactly. But
I loved how we like played into Morph and kind of like played up his death. And Brian Wood said the biggest sin is, why does Morph push the guy with the healing factor out of the way so that he could get shot? Even when I was 10 years old, that did not make sense to me. I didn't even think about that. So there was actually several people who kind of pointed that out in the comments. The comment section is just full of people giving opinions, which can be fun and a little bit daunting at the same time.
I think you nailed, Danae, though, why the X-Men are interesting versus are in some ways more interesting, because they aren't like your typical comic book. They're not really superheroes, like in the traditional way. And I think this cartoon actually gets that. I don't think the movies get that. I think the movies try to be like traditional super. Well, I mean, that first X-Men movie basically created the tentpole for what became the superhero movie.
Yeah.
Right.
What the MCU is doing now. So I do love that about the cartoon. And I think that's why I've started watching it, because it's like, oh, they actually, like, they get the X-Men.
So Chris was the shadow on this one, and he wrote that the weird thing to him was while watching Night of the Sentinels was that they're a very clunky villain. Giant robots with no reflexes trying to gather up known mutants, ignoring the obvious mutants if they weren't listed in the program. One of the dumbest parts is when one of the Sentinels tries to locate one girl, only to find out that she's put a bunch of pillows on her bed to look like she's sleeping and has escaped. That's when the Sentinel turns into a tracking program. Like, he couldn't have just done that in the first place.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed some of Chris's. He had some of my favorites in this one. He did the I believe did he do the philosophy sin?
I don't remember.
Where Beast is like, like, are any of us really safe? And like, he's doing the whole safety thing.
It was me or him. I honestly don't remember.
I can't remember, but there were some additions that he had to this one that just,
I think he did the Sentinel thing, right? He did the
Sent It All. Robert, my name is Robert Paulson, which I don't understand that reference. You guys want to tell me a horrible ending to a movie again? I don't want to know about it, but
yeah. So there's this movie called The Mist. And, no, what is Robert Paulson? That's
a Fight Club, right?
You think so?
It was so funny because it was kind of like Sentinel, Sent It All, Sentinel.
Yeah,
My name is Robert Paulson. My name is Robert Paulson. I didn't look that up. I just was like,
it's Fight Club. No, I had to look it up too because I'm not. I mean, I've seen Fight Club, but I don't know it back and forth like Chris does. And at first, I thought he was making like a weird Terminator reference or something that I just didn't get. And then I looked it up and found out it was Fight Club. So
he also helped the derpity doo kind of one work well. And that was really great. The sin was X-Men come for the action pack or the action and stay for the philosophy. And
which is true.
Really
it might have been him. I honestly don't. I forget like half the time what I've written. So
the only thing I really wanted to kind of like touch base
changed.
on was this whole conversation about, you know what? No, first I'm going to tell you something about Beast. Beast has this comment, this nom de guerre comment, and I kind of fought for this one a little bit because it's when Storm shows her powers and he's in the background. He's like, I always want, and to think that I used to wonder about her nom de guerre. And I was like, what the hell is Beast talking about? What that means is a fictitious name used when the person performs a particular social role. And I was like, no, you didn't, Beast. You would know Storm's powers like instantly. You never like wondered about it. And anyway, maybe he did for a split second. And so technically maybe it could, but I love
maybe
that
he's
so
trolling
much
you
because I don't know.
Well, I think some of it's too because we have to learn who they are because there was also that one dumb moment where they're like in the middle of the battle and they're like, what is being an X-Men all about? Or like, what?
I like that you pointed that out.
This is when you're having this conversation that you've clearly had before.
The only other one though that I was for the comments blew up on was the Storm and her powers of allowing people to fly. I read so many of those comments trying to kind of have a better understanding of Storm's powers because first of all, Storm was my favorite growing up. She was of all of the X-Men, she was the one that I loved the most.
Man, I bet you don't like the movies.
No, it's such a she's so underused. Although Halle Berry, like coming into that, like what was that elevator shaft or something when she was up in the I don't remember.
Yeah,
but
it sounds right.
I loved that. It's just she's so cool, but I've never really understood how she flies. I'm assuming she sort of uses the wind to fly. So people are like in the comments and they're trying to explain that she sort of creates a quote wind envelope around whomever she wants. And I'm like, okay, well then maybe if I had known that would mean that she could just envelop all of her friends and make them fly. So why would they even need to have, a jet or anything really?
Well, and furthermore, you're sending the show and what the show is showing, like what the the way they animated that, it looked exactly like you send it. So
yeah. And
that's
so then I'm like, so then I said, oh, okay, like that's cool. Thanks for telling me that. That's interesting news. I would have maybe done this a little bit different because, maybe more people would be able to fly. And their response was, well, I think she has to touch them, which just tells me that nobody knows what the fuck is going on with the story.
I think that's true about a lot of these. In fact, my keeping tabs has to do with one of the X-Men characters. So,
nice.
Even like Wolverine, like who's really popular, I think a lot of people, I don't really completely understand. And plus also through all these years that comics existed, they've changed so much, like they retcon constantly.
Yeah.
What the powers are able to do and whatnot.
Well,
so
in fairness, trapping my wife in my wind envelope is also one of my superpowers. So,
what does that even mean? I don't even know how to visualize what you're trying to convey right now. And I don't know that I want to.
No, I don't need you to come out and put your arm around me and have a
Are
conversation.
you talking about a Dutch oven? What are you talking
yes,
about?
exactly,
Oh, okay.
exactly.
Oh my God, that is not where I was going. I really am the least pervy. I don't even think that's perv, but that's just farting. But
All right.
I never would have gone there.
All right.
On that note, let's move on.
Let's move on to SpongeBob. Another SpongeBob episode, Band Geeks, possibly the most notorious SpongeBob episode in the canon.
You
Well,
taught me some stuff on this one.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to start off this SpongeBob section by recapping last episode where Jonathan said that he might end up liking SpongeBob, but then I've seen some of the back and forth conversations, and I feel like you need to update
Yeah,
everyone.
no, I don't think I'm going to like this show. It's okay. No, I will say I agree with you, Danae, though. It's been really fun to Senate. And it's very light and fanciful and all that fun stuff. But there's just, I don't know. I can't explain it. There's just
Squidward pisses him off instantly.
There's something about it that just irritates me. There's something. Well, even Chris said the same thing, too, to be fair.
Yeah. Like, I'm watching your guys' conversation like, oh, he don't like this. And
Chris
the other
is like,
thing...
Chris said this is one of the most irritating things he's ever seen. And that'll be a future episode. But yeah.
Yeah. And also, there is, I think it was in the camping episode. If not, it's in one that has been recently watched where SpongeBob has a head phallus. And I wanted to tell you, Aaron, because that was one of your sins. Not
Wait,
from
no, he
this
really
episode.
does?
He has an arrow that comes out of his head and points at something.
Oh.
Which means that maybe under his hat, he just creates a little phallus, in which case...
He can do a lot of
Ew.
things. He can live in mailboxes. And
Yeah.
Wow.
Squidward is awful. Like, he's just a terrible... Like, he's like Caillou in the ocean. Like, he's terrible.
Well, I'm still having
know.
fun.
I hadn't seen this episode. Who were the writers on this one? Was it you two?
Yeah,
Yeah.
This was a Dicer Watkins script. So Jonathan and I wrote on this, and I don't know that we.
This is one of those popular episodes, right? It's like one of the highest rated, I think, or
Yes,
maybe I'm thinking of something.
yes. This is the granddaddy episode right here.
Wow. I really want to watch the full episode. It looks like a lot of fun. But again, I think I'm more landing on the SpongeBob fan side of things of this trio.
I'm kind of being converted.
This was the best one that I've seen, but the Super Bowl thing is the main reason it's a big deal, right?
Yes.
Well, and tell
it was
me
a big
about
deal
that.
before the Super Bowl, but the Super Bowl kind of
Okay.
blew it up on the big stage. Yeah, I can talk about that right now. Basically, the story behind this episode is after I forget his name, and I don't have it in my notes, but the creator of SpongeBob, Hildebrand, I think is his name, Steven maybe,
It sounds right.
passed away, and the Super Bowl
Stephen Hillenberg.
Hillenberg? Okay, I thought it was
Hillenberg.
Brand. Okay, Hillenberg. So, anyways, he passed away, and then the fans who loved this episode, it was already a very popular episode, and they love it, said for a tribute to him, the Super Bowl should actually do this Super Bowl halftime show, like the SpongeBob song and everything. And so they petitioned, huge signings, like a lot of people signed the petition to have the NFL did this. And then the NFL released a teaser the week of the Super Bowl that teased the first few notes of this song. And so fans were like, oh my goodness, they're going to do it. Like Maroon 5 was already scheduled for the halftime show. And then it turned out that they just played the fanfare before the Super Bowl halftime show as just kind of a nod to the fans.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. And I kind of mentioned this in the final sin, fans don't want a nod. They want exactly what they ask for. And so fans were really upset that the Super Bowl tricked them into thinking that it was going to be the whole thing. And it was just, kind of a nod.
Yeah, it almost would have been better if they just hadn't done anything.
Yeah, that's
like at least then you could have been like, well, okay, they just decided not to do it.
But if you think of it from their perspective, they thought they were doing a good thing, kind of, paying tribute without, I don't know. I don't know what people expected. Did you expect Maroon 5 to actually sing that song, to sing Sweet Victory? Like, is that something you thought would happen? Like, I don't know. So, but
Did you
anyways,
expect the ground to open up and a little bubble of water to pop up in the center of the stage, and then you have people that are in like SpongeBob and Patrick costumes, which, by the way, would be rad.
Game 7 of the 2016 World Series, there was like this fan thing that got out there that people wanted Charlie Sheen to come throw the first pitch out because it was in Cleveland. It was Cubs and Indians in Cleveland. So it was like like in Major League, which was the Indians in the movie Major League. So they wanted Charlie Sheen to come out. And this was like in the middle of this was like at the height of the Charlie Sheen, like drinking tiger blood and all that crazy stuff going on. So, Cleveland was like, yeah, no, we're not doing that.
Charlie Sheen did what now? Wait, hold, what?
You really don't know this? But that kind of reminds me of that, and then people got mad. It's like, why are you're getting mad because they didn't have somebody that has no relation to Cleveland whatsoever come out and throw a pitch? Like, I don't know, it's just weird. Yeah, no, Charlie Sheen said I think he said he drank tiger blood, in an interview.
Long before Joe Exotic, anybody knew who that was. Charlie Sheen was the Tiger King long before then, so, yeah.
That's terrifying. Okay, well, I mean, that's a little disappointing, but at the same time, it helps me understand that kind of sin. I knew there was some kind of a correlation to our real world. And I think, I guess at that moment, whenever the little bubble opens up and comes up and they're showing all this footage from different, games or whatever, I can see how this would be a really fun episode for everybody to get behind.
Yeah.
But I loved the Sins so much. So whenever you guys are ready,
go for it. Yeah, we wrote on it, so you get to talk about it.
I tell you what, the series, the top one for me is the series of all of the instruments that are placed, like the overhead shot, and the narrator's just ranting about all of the different misplacements. But what was so good about that is the way that it was edited together, and everything was so seamless. So it's kind of like in my mind, it's like when you watch a movie and it's like a chase scene or a fight scene or something. And it's really important for you to understand prospectively where you are in this sequence.
Yeah.
And so the same thing in a moment like this, where there's all of these things to sin, for me, the person watching, to be able to follow all of that and be like, yeah, you're super right. All the arrows and just the way that it was delivered, it all came together just seamlessly. So to me, that was one of the all times.
Okay, so
as far as
let me tell you a little bit about
put together.
The process of that one. I had on my phone, I took pictures of my TV screen at different points so that I could watch what was on the TV as well as reference different views, including that overhead view, which is, there's a lot of stuff that I love about that section, but the idea of, blaming them for giving us an overhead shot to work with, because it's so true. Like, if you want to hide that stuff, don't give us that shot, man. Like, that shot just proves everything wrong. So, I had a lot of fun with that one, but I was definitely thinking about, okay, what are all the pieces? How do they best go together? What can we throw in as fun asides?
Right in the middle of that one, we get a gender-specific Pearl Crab's STD reference. So there's just all these things that are happening in this sequence. It's one of the longest sins ever, but it's all important sins that all make sense. It's like a paragraph of ding, 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 but it's so funny.
Can I tell?
It was like the what is it, the Red Wedding, the Game of Thrones?
Yes. Oh, kind of like that, yeah.
Well, it was similar in vein to that.
Well, and people mention the button sin as well from Family Guy as being similar to that as well. Going after the clear buttons and no buttons and black buttons and
that was Danae though, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Writing with the most fun thing about writing with Aaron is how he makes you feel like a slacker. That's always, he sends you these notes like, hey, I'm trying something here, and I'm like, really? I just made penis jokes and stuff. I was like, oh, this looks like a good place to say Squidward sucks. And
yeah, there's electronics under the water.
There are times
that is weird though. I mean. I didn't know if that was really care. You or not. I'm just saying. It's kind of like Cars, where you just really can't think about it, which is fine. But the animators drew that shit. Draw something else.
Yeah.
Well, what was interesting how are their books?
What was interesting about that one is we both picked something else different on the shelf for the Combine.
Oh, that's
Jonathan
funny.
picked the books, and I picked
the
electronics. So it's kind of, which makes perfect sense that Jonathan would focus on the books and I'd focus on the electronics. That's perfect. I wanted to say before you go on, I do want to say in that run is one sin that every once in a while when you're a writer, you just have ones maybe you just want to frame and, put on the wall or whatever. And you're just like, even if nobody else thinks this is the funniest thing ever, this is one of my favorite things I've ever written. And the fact that I said this... that instrument has more wood and wind than my Porn and Beans festival is just one of my favorite things I've ever written.
You're cracking yourself up. You can't even recover.
I made it very clear I don't even remember what I write. So,
oh man,
I'd probably frame something one of you wrote.
Oh, that's so
whoops.
funny. Oh,
Well, there was like even that one time where I kept saying, "Hey, we can just cut this. Like, I don't think I like it anymore." And then Aaron was like, "I wrote that."
yeah.
It's true. That is a true story. All right, go on today. What else were you saying?
Oh, that was good stuff. That was so funny. Oh, I just had like putting ads in your shower and for whatever, for podcasts or something. And I'm like, hey, that's not a bad idea. Oh, wait, it is a bad idea. But the one that's funny, and this is like a crossover to something that we won't even send because it's not even out yet. But we have another one that's just a weird coincidence of sinning spit.
Yeah.
Because there's another one that I wrote on. I think Aaron and I wrote on it. And we do this whole sin about this gob of spit. And now here it is again. I'm watching SpongeBob like, what? This is happening again?
Something that's coming up soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
And this happens like it happened with Edward Scissorhands. It's happened with other things we've
and
done.
I've got
where
another example coming up later in the show. So yeah, it's amazing
so
how
weird.
those things happen.
It's just a weird.
I will say about that
Anyway.
one, it is one of the funnest things to me is to troll the audience over and over again by sinning things underwater when the show obviously has it's not trying to appear to be underwater, but I love continuing to sin like the underwater thing because it's so good. I mean, somebody mentioned in the comments we could have seen the fact that he's taking a shower underwater. Like, there's
I
just
think
all those moments.
I wrote something about that. We took it out, I believe.
Anything else you wanted to mention today?
No, go ahead, guys.
You touched on everything that I wanted to mention. Jonathan, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well, I liked the bit about, this was the shower thing, but I just liked the term, the Squidward defense. And I also liked the name Squilliam Fancy Son.
From band class. You have to say from band class every time you
from
mention
band
him,
class.
which I love.
That was funny. You know that it's
And-
purposeful when it shows up multiple times.
Oh, yeah,
We
you
got
got to
a
make
lot
it
of
so
sins
trolly.
out
Yeah.
of- we got a lot of sins out of like 12 minutes of episode 2. Because when they sent the video to us to review and it was like 7 minutes, I was like, what the hell did we do? Like, how is this 7 minutes? But
Yeah. All right,
it was fun.
Let's move on to music video sins for the week. 21 Pilots. The song is Ride.
Love this song.
Yeah, I love this song too. This is a classic.
Ass over dick with drums. Let's go.
Guess we found our cold open.
That's right.
No, this was also one of the.
I never think about that.
This was one of the first songs that my daughter and I, because I don't remember how old she was when this came out a few years ago. I guess she was probably like 3 or 4, but I remember she kind of liked it, and it was like, I don't know, it was one of those first songs that we both kind of liked at the same time. It was a nice moment. So that's kind of what this song always means to me.
It's so great. I love the song so much. I'm a huge 21 Pilots fan. I love the depth that they put into their lyrics are so poetic, and I don't presume to know what the meaning is. In fact, they have often talked about the fact that their lyrics are purposefully meaningful to them, but ambiguous to everyone else. They want that level of ambiguity. Yeah. For sure.
Well, then you can put yourself in the music. I think that's one of the things I love about certain artists is that if they don't have it so specific, you can really insert a lot of your own experiences into a song, and it really becomes personal. And there are some songs that work, obviously breakup songs, because we've all kind of experienced a bad breakup in some way or another, or things like that. But if you've got a song that kind of just the lyrics are general enough and they're good music too, I love the musicality of 21 Pilots. They're just, to me, they're fun to listen to.
I just want to point out, I do agree with you on breakup songs, but I was just thinking, do breakup songs not mean anything to you, Aaron? Because you've never broken up, right? Right? Is that right?
No, that's not correct. I have had many girlfriends, many at the same time. When I was in high school,
I thought you and Jen had been together since you were like 12 or something for some reason.
No, I met her when I was like 14. And the day I met her, I told my parents that was the kind of girl that I wanted to marry someday. I'm trying to be all romantic over here, Danae. Oh, that's why you're oohing.
No, I was thinking that would be cool. I was just thinking you had never had to break up, so I was just thinking that'd be really interesting. Like you'd be listening to these songs and be like, I don't know what this is about. I'm awesome.
There was a time between when I met Jen and when we started quote unquote dating or whatever, where she was with someone else, and so I dated a bunch of girls during that time. So
yeah, hey,
Aaron was
Jonathan.
a slut.
Yeah, he was, and I want you to ask him sometime, just whenever you're ready, about the poem gift. Just whenever you're ready, I want you to ask him about that.
Do I really want to know though?
yeah, I think you probably do. This is like, you know how your life is it just is a sitcom sometimes. This is one of my sitcom moments. And this is something I think I've actually seen in movies in a way, but one of the girls that let me tell it this way. It was, I think, a Valentine's Day with, my now wife. And I was like, oh, I don't have anything to give her. And I was like, oh, I love this beautiful love poem that I have here that the previous girlfriend gave me, but she doesn't know that. And I'll give that to her as, a gift for this Valentine's, because I think it's really beautiful. And it would mean a lot to me to be in our relationship instead of this other relationship that doesn't exist anymore. So so we're sitting there. I've got it, in a box or whatever. And I bring it to her dorm room during college, and I say, Happy Valentine's Day, I got you this. And as I pull the poem out of the box and start handing it to her, I look on the back and there's a love note from my previous girlfriend signed on the back of this poem.
Wow.
And I didn't, in that moment, what do? Do you take it back? Do you oh, sorry, let me go find you something else? I didn't. I was just like, here you go.
Man.
Also, don't ever turn it over.
Jen really is the coolest person on the face.
She's amazing. I mean, she seriously is amazing.
Yeah, she's the best.
It's one of my favorite stories.
Well, yeah, I mean, my wife she would just make fun of me for the rest of my life. So,
well, the good news was I pretty much only dated Jennifers because that's pretty much all that was around when I was in high school were girls named Jennifer.
This is a real popular name back then.
So,
I had a lot of Jennifers. I went to high school.
It was signed.
I mean, I wasn't.
Yeah,
that sounded weird.
So it was signed,
I knew a lot of people named Jennifer.
It was signed Jennifer, so we could just pretend that she wrote that love note on the back to herself. I don't know.
I'm sure. Don't you remember?
Why does this say?
Why does your memory suck?
I wrote it really frilly, even though I have horrible handwriting, and I signed your name for some reason. I don't know.
With a little heart for the eye.
Yeah. And what's this part
amazing.
about me living in Indiana? I don't know. Some people live in Indiana. Anyways. Yeah, that was an experience.
Some people live in Indiana. Is what
It's true. It's true.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, back to this. This. Sorry to derail.
What are we
it's just
talking
one of my
about?
favorite
21
stories.
Pilots. Yeah, 21 Pilots.
I had a couple of favorite things that happened in this one. One I already mentioned, which will, I guess, be the introduction to the show. The ass over dick with the drum thing. That just cracked me up. The 90s band glasses moment, and even playing in the outtakes, the whole another band playing that looks similar. But my favorite outtake was from Wayne's World when he's like, "Thanks, I like to play," because I loved that part so much.
Yeah.
There was another outtake that
Garth
was good.
is the best.
What was the movie? Woods, shaky cam, scary
Blair Witch.
movie?
Blair Witch
that
Project.
outtake was also good.
Yeah, the Blair. I love the Blair Witch outtake. I thought that was great.
What'd you guys think of the video?
I loved it. It was really cool. I was I didn't know he was doing this one because he didn't have this on the schedule yet. Because I mean, right now, obviously, with everything going on, there's not a lot of music videos being made because they can't. So he went back into the archives, I guess, and picked one that he really liked and wanted to do. So it was really cool to see that he did it, and I thought he did a great job. I loved his Canadian accent.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
There early on, I loved the whole forest reggae or forced reggae discuss. That was really funny, and they rocked the sun off.
I had that one written down. Yeah,
and then the sin count total, and I believe that was actually Ashley that did that, or Mitchell. It was one of the editors that did that.
Yeah,
that was really clever.
I did a little research on that, on the 21 Pilots logo,
Cool.
which is what it goes to at the end, and it's kind of changed over time. And man, that's it. These guys are so deep and interesting. It's again is one of those things where they won't tell people what it means. He won't tell people.
Mitchell and Ashley.
Well, yes, they're awesome as well.
Just
But they won't tell people what that logo means because it's very personal to them. And in fact, the song Kitchen Sink, I think is the name of the song, kind of talks about this idea of wanting to go on because you have something that's personal to you that you haven't shared with the world. And so it kind of the logo comes from that song. There's a really, how do I say this? There's a really dark but interesting interpretation that some fans have come up with that actually makes sense to me, and I don't even know if I want to share it here because it could be very triggering. It has to do with suicide and some other things. But it's kind of,
I think I've heard this.
But it's one of those things where now when I see that logo, I have all these weird feelings. Like it's not like just I love that band. It's, oh my goodness, if this means this to him, how deep is that and how hard is that? And yet at the same time, how much hope is there somehow, even with what it means. And I don't, mind sharing it with you guys if you want to know, but I think as far as the podcast goes, I'll let you do your own research if you want to kind of find some of those things out. But anyhow, I thought I'd mention that because when I saw that pop up at the end, I was like, man, that is one of the most interesting band symbols I've ever been aware of. It's the 21 Pilots logo. So yeah, interesting stuff. Those guys are so fascinating.
They really are. And I didn't know what you were talking about. That's really interesting. You bringing up the idea that, it's stuff that's very personal to them, but they're also trying to make it to where they don't want people to know specifics because then they can get that's what it sounds like to me. They want their fans to get what they get out of the songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I find that that's really interesting.
Here's a little thing that's from Google that's not too serious. It just says for each album released, 21 Pilots band logo has evolved and shifted, changing slightly due to color schemes and record aesthetic. So that's something that I didn't realize about them too, is that it's not just, they continue to evolve it. Did you already say that and I missed it?
No, but yes,
okay.
It looks a little bit different on every album as well.
No, that was the 6% you listened to.
Speaking of which, I guess I'll go into my thoughts on the video with this. I was so glad to see a sin-off for the substance of the song. I thought that was really cool. Of course, that's going to appeal to me as somebody who that's the first thing I think about with music is what does it mean and, with the substance that's there. So I did like that. The only other thing I wanted to mention is probably for me the biggest coincidence I've ever had with two videos in the same week that no communication was not communicated. We have two videos this week, and we'll talk about the next one next, where we sin non-consensual putting on of glasses. How is that a thing in two videos in the same week? We didn't talk about it. It was when that video came up in the 21 Pilots video, I was like, what? Like, it kind of blew my mind. He calls it non-consensual glassesing, and I talk about it in the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs video as vertigo. Pulling a non-consensual vertigo or whatever it said. So
it's funny when I was reviewing the edit and I heard Jeremy say that about the glasses scene or whatever, however he said it. I was like, we are really dicks to Jeremy. I mean, no, that was Barrett actually. So I guess he did it to himself. But I don't know. I always think about that when I hear the narrator say something really tough. I'm just like, man, we suck. Like, we are so mean.
Jeremy just messaged me with one of our upcoming TV Sins videos. He said, I want you to know the sin you wrote was amazing, and also I hate you for writing it. It's like,
which one was it?
The best. It's coming up in a video. We'll talk about it when it comes up.
I wrote a sin, and where part of it was in Pig Latin one time, and Chris did the combine, and he sent it back. He's like, I just want to tell you, I love that sin. He's like, but Jeremy would hate both of us if we made him read that. So I was like, that's cool.
That's cool.
Anyhow,
gotta try.
Speaking of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, let's head on to CinemaSins for the week. That was the first CinemaSins video of the week. That was Jeremy and I that wrote on that. That's a Dicer Scott script. What is your experience with this movie? I love it. It's one of my favorite movies. Danae?
Go ahead.
I haven't seen it.
Take a drink. Okay, Jonathan.
Did you have anything else to say today?
I just remember reading the book. I loved the book.
Yeah.
My daughter, this was one, like we talked about Mulan a week or two ago. I don't know, we recorded 2 episodes. I can't remember when we talked about Mulan. But this was another one my daughter latched onto pretty early. And so I've seen it a lot of times. But it's really well done. I will say the sequel, though, is terrible. And the funny thing about the sequel is that was the first movie my daughter ever looked at me afterwards and was like, Daddy, that wasn't very good.
The sequel's a bit rough, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that's okay. You cannot like something. But no. I think this movie, I think it's really creative. I think it does a good job of adapting the story and, making it visually interesting. And I like it. I think it's fun.
I think I was struck by it the first time I saw it. I was struck by how unique the sense of humor felt to me. And I think I was, for the first time, feeling that Lord and Miller sense of humor that would come to kind of define them in some of the future things that they did.
Yeah, because was this like kind of their first thing?
Yeah.
I guess. I don't remember hearing about them before this.
No, this was it. And so, later the Lego movie would kind of feel the same way, where the humor is so fast, but also really clever and interesting. And I had a really good time with this.
Even like 21 Jump Street. I mean, you can still see that.
Yep.
That style of humor. It's just a little more adult, obviously, in 21 Jump Street, but it's the exact same thing. Yeah, no, they're talented people.
Yeah, I love this movie.
We did hear from Jeremy on this one as well. He said that he had never seen this movie before and found it to be quite charming. The sin removal, where the one guy is sitting in the "you will get wet" section and doesn't get wet, and then he throws his hat down. He said he laughed at that for several minutes, so long that his wife had to come and check on him.
Yeah, there were a couple like sin removals in this where I was just like, oh, so they're really finding this funny because like there wasn't even really anything else to it other than, oh, you got me.
Yeah.
There's some more specific sins he talks about. Do you want me to go ahead and read that?
Yeah, sure.
Or?
Yeah, go ahead.
He said the puns in this movie were a little too much for him. It may have been the delivery, but he wrote several sins about these puns. And he even likes puns. But nice to beat you, Jesus. Which I guess I have. Did you write your own pun?
Yeah, I was curious
name
about
into that
too.
one, or did Jeremy write that one?
Jeremy wrote that.
Dicer.
Yeah, Jeremy called me out
hilarious.
on that one.
Well, at least you weren't. It didn't make you look like a pervert.
What's hilarious?
I am the dumbest person. Go ahead.
So what's interesting is Jeremy wrote about making bad food puns and about like cutting my pay or whatever and and then I had so many bad food puns in my script that I sent him. Including a few that made it in the final, like ships and salsa.
That one is bad though. The one that he mentions firing you or whatever, or cutting your pay. That one is. Oh,
there are some really bad ones. Yeah,
that one was the sardine. It's starting to get better.
And is that Anna Faris? I can't remember who the voice actors were, but that sounded straight up like Anna Faris.
I think that's Anna Faris. Yeah, I think you're right.
I did really enjoy that though. That just the zing to you, the reference to you was so funny to me. And then I noticed that there were still some other puns in there. Like, my God, the puns are making me hangry. Yeah. I don't know if you wrote that one.
No, that was Jeremy.
That was good.
But it's still like it's like a play on words, sort of a fun thing. Mm-hmm. He said also he couldn't believe the fortune cookie falling on the Great Wall of China moment. He realized it's been a minute since the movie came out, but wow, especially given that fortune cookies aren't even a thing in China and are an American invention. That just seemed super tone deaf to me. But overall, a fun collaboration with the sin about the snowball fight stealing the dodgeball from Billy Madison, which Dicer remembered stole the gag from Dumb and Dumber, which had also used snowballs. So that was a fun collaboration moment. It's always fun when sins end up improving through the collaborative editing process that we use. So those
Billy
are kind of
Billy Madison ripped off a joke from Dumb and Dumber. Didn't he come out like right around the same time?
I think it was dodgeball is what he was talking about.
Oh, dodgeball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think ripped off is loosely. I think the narrator is making assumptions there, but
paid homage.
Yeah,
stealing the dodgeball from Billy Madison, which Dicer remembered that stole it from Dumb and Dumber. Sorry, so that was I think I misread that. But anyway, those were his kind of general thoughts on it there.
Yeah, fun stuff. What about you guys?
I do have a plot question. So she has glasses that are put on her. Was she not able to see throughout the first part of the movie?
Yeah, that's what the movie is insinuating, that she was just walking around half blind. Yeah.
All right, interesting. Okay.
Well, I mean, going back to Charlie Sheen in Major League, that was his problem. He couldn't.
That's right.
He couldn't see. Then they put glasses on him, and he was the best pitcher in baseball. That's how it works, Danae.
That's right.
That's how real life works.
So cinematic. I had a really good time watching the Sins video, kicking it off with Jeremy kind of delivering in that really gravelly, grumbly voice. The
Will
clouds,
Arnett. Yep.
All important movies start with clouds. That was just really, really fun.
Here's what I love about that. And by the way, Jeremy knocked it out of the park on that one. Like he really sounds like Will Arnett doing Lego Batman in that. But there is a really interesting thing that the Lego Batman movie basically starts its movie as a CinemaSins video. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that's intentional even, but it feels like, you know, they're talking about the narration and the, you know, reading. Doesn't he even say reading at one point? Or he says something like that.
No, he says reading.
And so it's kind of one of those things. And we know the director of Lego Batman is a fan of CinemaSins as well. In fact, we met him at the awards a couple years ago. Chris and I did. And so
that's
it's
just
kind of
fun to think about.
It's kind of goes around, comes around kind of thing where now we're imitating Lego Batman to sin the things in our videos. So it's just, I really kind of enjoy kind of the circular fun of that. So yeah, it's good stuff.
I really like the ominous smothering pillow birthday gift moment.
Yeah.
That cracked me up just because it did look super ominous.
Right?
And I like when we can kind of point out a decision that somebody makes to, why would you make that ominous? It actually happened in X-Men also when they kidnap Jubilee and then she's trying to escape her kidnappers and they're all racing after her as if she is going to be murdered or something. It's like, why? This is super unnecessary tension.
Yeah, it's a weird moment.
Yeah, just these weird moments to point out. I really liked. I like that. I love the scene about the dial, just where creating the different food. Like, okay, let's just see. These are really intricate buttons here, so let's see what food is gonna come out, and then recapping the food, and then seeing what pops out. It's a hamburger. I really enjoyed that one as well.
My favorite part about that is the salt and pepper dial, which makes no sense because those aren't opposites. You know, they're just two things. You can both salt and pepper something, but just the fact that I made Jeremy said, how am I even supposed to push it real good? Like that that slayed me. He did that so well.
Who likes sardines?
Jeremy.
Oh yeah, I didn't think you would.
Nah,
you super taster.
That's right.
This one also had two really funny cum jokes where the narrator thinks that it's like a cum bucket, and then and then they think it's cumin, the spice, but like he does that. Oh, that's cumin. No, never mind. Like and two of them in this script.
Yeah, it was the International House of Cumin, right? And he's he's like, that's the name of my house. Oh,
that says cumin.
I love the giant bag of potato skips. That was a really funny, funny pun there. The water goes in the top and the food hurricane comes at the bottom. E. coli. What the hell, guys? That is so gross. But yes.
That's awesome. I just like the only one I'll mention. Well, there's a couple that I don't think got mentioned yet. I love every character in this movie is either Flint or a bully, which is so true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. That is not what I thought scissoring was. And, I love noticing like weird faults in animation where that one point where his arm looks like extremely long and you're like, his arm is apparently 6 feet long.
Yeah. The Jello scene, man. That Jello scene, which I also, also had the,
piano.
Yeah.
And the glasses.
Yeah. It's crazy. What were you saying?
There are times whenever I'm watching these when I'm like, oh, okay, I'm understanding these long running sins that I just don't pull them from my mind when I'm working. But this one had a really great example. The run where he's going around, he's just saying all these words. He's like slash, push here, da 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 da, and there's all these single words. And then the sin is just excitement. And it clicked for me. It clicked. I was like, oh, that's what this is about. And I thought it was one of the best examples for me as a writer to just click that into my mind as far as what that sin is doing. It was so funny and it was so well placed. And what a hilarious part where this guy is just literally just saying all these words out loud, what he's doing. Yeah. Push, pull, click, flip, dot, dot. Excitement. So I loved seeing that one because it made sense to me in a new way.
That was a very good use of it. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. It reminds me of the times where we're able just to go cliche, you know, because they actually say the thing on the screen or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it.
I've actually, this is random, but this is another one of those, but I've, in a couple of ones I've written recently, I've done this, and I didn't really intend to do it twice, but it just kind of worked out where I did the movie has time for this. And then I'll say, but it really doesn't, and neither does the character, you know?
Yeah.
And I've actually gotten that through a couple of scripts recently, so I was like, oh, that's cool.
Well done.
Yeah.
It's just fun to play around with the cliches of our scripts.
I will say I had a blast on this. It was so much fun to write. You guys have touched on, you know, pretty much everything I wanted to mention. And this is going to go as one of my favorites. I've really enjoyed writing writing on this one. So let's move on to Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
No, we can't because I forgot one more that made me laugh out loud.
All right, go for it.
That was the outtake, which was the weird rat parrot, but then it was Iago from a
Yep.
problem with your daughter. It was just, it killed me. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That's funny.
The pear rat. The pear rat.
The pear rat, which I didn't understand too. I guess I have questions. I probably should just watch the movie. Did they also just mash up animals too?
Well, it was one of his previous inventions.
Oh,
Was rats that fly.
Oh, okay.
Iris is like the perfect age for that movie.
Oh, really?
Just FYI,
It's so
I would
much
say,
fun.
or at least 3 or 4. Yeah, I would say.
Okay.
She'll be 4, right?
She'll be 3.
Oh, she'll be 3. So she's just turning 3. For some reason, I was thinking she was already 3. No,
We
I
wa-
think she'd enjoy it.
We watched The Rescuers, 1977 Rescuers on Disney Plus yesterday,
Nice.
and that was pretty fun because it's pretty slow paced and it
Yeah.
follows a pretty simple storyline and so she really enjoyed that one because it's not quite as with Frozen and these other ones, it's just there's so much going on and it's just moving from thing to thing. In this one you have a chance to watch, oh cool, that's a mouse climbing into a suitcase, that's interesting.
There's some
Instead of it-
weird. I remember because when you watch it with your kid, you start thinking about weird things because you're just like,
yeah.
oh, my kid's watching this. There's like weird like villain cleavage in that movie. Do you know? Like
oh,
she's
she
wearing
just has,
like a
she
slip.
has saggy boobs. She has saggy
Yeah,
boobs.
yeah. But she's
She
also
had-
wearing like a negligee.
Yeah, she's just basically wearing a long nightgown the whole
Yeah,
time.
interesting.
Are we
Interesting
talking
choice,
about
Disney.
Yzma from
Rescuers? Is that her name?
The
No,
Emperor's
but
New
I know
Groove?
what you're talking. Kronk and Yzma.
Yeah. You're talking about
yeah,
saggy
yeah.
boobs and a long negligee. I just figured we were talking about Yzma.
Basically,
Yeah,
they're
they
way more
reused
flingy,
that.
and they have like Yzma's. It feels like they have been sapped of all life and are just sort of like
Shriveled.
hard mountain, like tiny little mountain.
Hey, can
peaks,
we
sort of
spend
like
a whole
if-
episode talking about animated boobs? I think this will be
Sure.
people will love this.
But then like Medusa or whatever her name is in this one, I have to look it up because I can't remember what the bad woman's name is. They're like flinging around the whole time, so they're very juicy.
I see. Juicy.
They're
Okay.
juicy.
They're juicy. Got it.
I
Now on to
having-
Jessica
I-
Rabbit.
as a breastfeeding mother, that's the only thing I can think to describe.
Sure.
them.
Sure.
Is this real life for me?
Yeah.
Sorry, was that too much? I'm sorry.
No,
you know
you're good.
what? Send your complaints to.
Danae, stop talking about juicy breasts at cinemasins.com.
I'm not making that email. Okay, guys. Okay,
All right.
anyway, go ahead.
Now we're on to Scott Pilgrim versus the World. This was an Atkinson share joint. Chris and Barrett writing on this, talking about the movie itself. I am a huge fan of this movie. I'm a huge fan of Edgar Wright. I think he is pretty much 5 for 5. He hasn't made a movie that I don't think is awesome. So good for him. Way to go, Edgar.
Yeah, people are gonna hate me on this episode with this and SpongeBob. I do not like this movie. Like,
Oh,
I mean,
interesting.
At all. I
it's
love
interesting.
his other 4 movies. Does he only have the 5 movies?
He only
Is it
got-
the 3, the Cornetto trilogy and
Baby Driver. Yep, that's it.
I like all 4 of those. Although I don't think I like Baby Driver as much as most people, but I did like it. I don't know. This one it never connected with me. I watched it a couple times, and I did not rewatch it this time. So it's probably been like 8 years since I've seen it. But I don't know.
Just
I remember
so I don't get
seeing it.
letters, I just need to clarify something just so I don't get letters. He had a movie before Shaun of the Dead that is like not necessarily a student film, but it was like 10 years before Shaun of the Dead. He did something like I want to say Fistful of Fingers or something like that. I can't remember.
Well, he also worked on. I believe he was part of that show Spaced with.
Spaced. Yeah. So I
believe
just
so,
wanted to clarify that because I know I'll get people tweeting me.
But the
or whatever,
wide theatrically like big
Yeah.
releases.
What were you
he's
saying,
got
Danae?
He's got the 5.
Well, first of all, I mean, I was going to talk about my experience with this movie, but I just want to touch on something that you said that before you get letters, are you going to give out your address?
I was thinking about emails, but yeah.
Who's gonna send it? USPS? I don't think so.
We do have a CinemaSins P.O. box. I suppose if you want to receive letters, send your complaints via letter.
There are a lot of people PO'd about their PO box right now. Like it's a real thing.
Yeah, it is a real thing.
Yeah, they can write the letter with a quill pen that they got from the
yes.
the
With a
Hermitage
feather.
gift shop.
That's right. I remember watching this movie. I think I went in the theater theaters to watch this movie. People were telling me it was so fun and unique. And I think it was fun and unique. It's one of those where there's this overlay of video games. So for those of us who love video games, it's sort of fun to see that on a movie, like to think about peeing and have your little pee bar go down or health or coins. Like that's just a fun imaginative experience, and one that I like in my life. Sometimes when I'm really imaginative, I've definitely gone outside and pretended to play Mario in the real world. That's my existence. And so to see something, I remember connecting to that and be like, that was a lot of fun. But I do not remember the plot of this movie. So whenever I was watching the Sins video and realizing that I guess I never questioned, is this in the real world? Is this a video game? Is like, I know it's a comic. She has a chip in her head. Apparently that's part of the plot. I don't remember any of that. I literally only remember there being some fun action sequences with some video game stuff. So it was interesting for me to watch it and going, I literally do not remember this part. Like, I don't remember any of this movie apparently.
I totally get why people love this movie. I do.
Right.
It just, to me, it was just like chaos and it wasn't funny, and I just wasn't connecting with it. But no, I can see why people would enjoy it. Maybe not being a big video game person, maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Because I like all the actors involved. I didn't even remember Chris Evans was in this movie.
Oh,
I completely forgot that.
Me
and he's
too.
so different.
It's great.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great thing where it's like Chris
That's
Evans
America's ass, man.
Chris Evans has been great for longer than you remember, huh? That Sin is one of my favorites.
That was fun.
I've always liked Chris Evans, though. I even saw Not Another Teen Movie. Like, I actually think that movie is kind of funny. And he did that really cool thriller with Jason Statham and Kim Basinger. It's called Cellular.
Yep.
Which is one I've always enjoyed.
Yep.
But, that's a whole.
And of course, thing. Fantastic Four, and yeah, he's always been great.
Oh yeah, Fantastic Four, best movie ever.
Super forgot about that one too. Chris said, going into a sin writing assignment, that a movie is possibly too good for sinning. We've done this in the past with some untouchable films, and what's great about writing sins for a movie like this is that it reaffirms the process because you can always find an angle. In this, it's mostly how the League of Evil X's works. Even in a fantasy comic book way, the process doesn't make much sense. Don't get me wrong, it's fun as hell, but raises so many questions. So that was kind of like his first sort of thought. Secondly, he goes on, Michael, Sarah, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, both the actors and the characters, are a romantic mismatch. She doesn't seem to like him all that much, but falls in love with him anyway, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. She's way too cool and way too attractive for him. All that said, Scott Pilgrim is such a joy to watch. It's actually way more fun to sin these untouchables than the terrible movies.
I agree with that, actually.
Yeah.
I enjoy, like, when I got to sin Halloween, and I recently got to sin a couple movies this past week that I quite like. And it was just, I don't know. It's interesting to be able to do that with stuff that, you haven't really thought of in that way before.
Yep.
I was impressed with the sinning layers, especially kind of towards the beginning of this video. There's like music references and artist references and sort of like even movie references, and they're those that are probably just, I should get used to seeing them from, I don't know who wrote them, but Chris and Barrett both do that. So it's like where they kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper, like, well, this was happening at this time, and this person's over here. And it's just like, gah! Like you're going sort of into someone's brain, this genius place, and along for the ride. And that happened in multiple ways, which sort of, I don't know, it speaks to their intellect and sort of how they take a movie or a TV show or whatever, and they sort of like break it down into its pieces. So for me, watching a video like this it's another example of like, wow, that's a level I don't know that I'll ever get to, but that was really, really impressive. But I also want to say that at one point in this, they said that they weren't going to take any more sins off, and then they did. So I can't trust them anymore.
Yes, I'm sure trusting the narrator has been something people have been able to do for so long.
I know. I'm really upset about it. I'm going to bring it up in staff meeting. Guys, I can't trust you anymore.
I love this video as well. Stalking in a humorous way made me laugh. So much pee in this movie, it could have booked a room at a Russian hotel. Is just genius.
Gross.
I love that so much. Of course, I love the Knives Out sin where he just says Knives Out after he breaks up with knives. And then here, this is just one of those things that is, again, one of those life coincidences where something happens. I just watched Clueless for an episode of the Civ Pop podcast because my co-host and I are doing movies we've never seen before, and he'd never seen Clueless. So we, did that one to knock it off his list of shame. And during Clueless, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones play at their prom, and that guy's just dancing around stage, not doing anything because that's apparently a ska thing. You just have a guy that's paid to dance around on stage.
It really is a ska thing, yes.
And so the fact that the Sin called this out like the day after I watched that movie, I'm just like, it's just kind of one of those weird things that happens. Who thought I would hear Mighty Mighty Boss Tones?
I'm married to a giant ska fan, and I've asked her that many times what the point of that dude is. She doesn't know. Nobody knows.
Well, my brother was in a ska band and loved ska. That was like one of his big, like ska, and then he transitioned into emo. Kind of that transition that happened, for a lot of people. But yeah, he was that guy in a ska band. So
nice.
So there you go.
That's funny.
So yeah,
right on.
What about you, Jonathan? Anything from the video you wanted to talk about?
Well, I thought, speaking of like taking cliched sins and doing a new twist on them, I love when they did the Universal music, and then Jeremy just said Comcast.
Yeah,
when they played it over, I think it was Chris Evans, right?
It was,
and then I really Scott Pilgrim versus Personal Space was a favorite of mine because I'm a big Personal Space guy. And then just the terminology of Scott wins this fight by orgasming a woman, I thought was really funny.
Yes.
And I did like how they were pointing out too, where all of a sudden when it's the girl that he's supposed to be fighting the woman, he's not fighting her. Like they changed it to where I thought that was interesting. That's not something I would have ever thought about. And I'm sure what Chris and Barrett were saying was exactly why they did what they did.
Yeah, they don't want to see a guy beat up a girl.
Yeah, but I don't know. But yeah, I thought that whole thing was really interesting, breaking it down.
Yeah.
I don't think that's initially a fault in the movie, maybe, but it was just interesting. It was an interesting perspective that I wouldn't have thought about.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff. Anything else before we move on?
Yeah, actually, before we move on, because this wraps up all of our material before we go into keeping tabs, right?
Yep.
Okay, so before we do that, we said last week we were going to talk about the Avengers video because it hadn't actually released yet, and we weren't able to see the comments. So did you guys get a chance to look at the comments?
No, I did not. Go ahead.
I totally forgot. I'm terrible.
It's super okay. It's just a lot of fun.
Because we did talk about it. We just didn't talk about the comments.
No, it's fine. I'm fired. Bye.
Well, no, it's okay. We just didn't. We didn't know how it was going to be received.
Listen, Jonathan. If I can get away with chips and salsa, then you're safe. You're safe.
It's good to know.
So yeah, the comment section is a lot of fun on that one, and it looks like it was received really well. A lot of people not realizing it was a joke, and then coming back into the comments and talking about it. Someone said it took them 9 minutes to see something really off here. So either I'm really dumb or you guys are really good, but probably both. So they obviously never caught up. That was from GK. From Thrawn Cadis. I watched this whole thing thinking he should have released it on April's Fool Day, but then I realized it was April Fool's Day. Mimi Tortoise says, I'm confused. And then I see the comments about the date in an 80s show, but I'm still confused. Is this a joke or not?
Yes.
What?
Yes, that's an easy one. Yes, it is a joke.
I wanted to reply to so many and be like, And then
well, here's the thing. Here's the answer to that question for every video. Yes, it's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke, guys.
Yeah, it is
it's a joke.
Yep. That's what we're doing, guys. And then Davis Sparker says, I'm only 90 seconds in, and every quote-unquote joke and sin is this Avengers movie, but this isn't the Avengers. So we definitely trolled like we wanted to. And then so many fans and like true fans going, this is the content I come here for. Great job, guys. Keep putting it out. So it was really encouraging to be in there to see people like commenting like how many people came here not realizing it was a joke, and then all the comments and stuff. So it was a really fun one to go back.
I saw someone, I think it was it might have been Joseph, our friend Joseph on Twitter. He said it took him way too long to figure out that it was. He was like, it took me he said something like, it took me longer than I want to admit to realize it was a joke.
Yeah. There was even comments in there like, I didn't know why it was ew, but then I realized it was everything wrong with. And can I just say, Same. When I first started working here, we were trying to do our digital calendars, and I was trying to kind of put all of our scheduling and everything that we have to do to stay focused into like a digital space. And so it was recommended that I title the movie releases for the main channel EWW. And I didn't know. It's like one of those things where you don't want to ask because you don't want to seem dumb, but then eventually you can't handle it any longer. And so I was like, I asked the only safe person that I had at that time, which was Aaron. I'm like, Aaron, what is ew? Why are we saying ew, the Avengers, or ew, this movie? And he's like, oh, it's everything wrong with. And then I got to do like my own personal private facepalm. So I feel you. Eventually,
Aaron writes facepalm like on half of his things he sends you. He's like, oh, I forgot to do this. Facepalm.
Yep. It's true.
Anyway, I just wanted to go back and touch on that since we couldn't give you guys the proper shout outs last week.
Very nice. I'm glad you did. All right, let's move on to keeping tabs.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
Oh, jeez.
This is the most public yet of my many humiliations.
We're each going to tell a story from putting together the week's content, maybe a Google search, some strange research we did, an FBI list that we're on now, whatever the case may be. So, guys, what do you got in keeping tabs? Jonathan, why don't you start?
Mine is pretty minor. I just, when we were doing X-Men, Danae had mentioned something, or I don't, maybe this was even before we did the Combine, but Cyclops is like a character I've never really been able to understand, like how he does, like I've never really understood his power. Like we were talking about earlier about a lot of these characters, you don't know exactly what their power really does. And Cyclops has that thing where he's shooting these optic blasts out of his eyes. And then in the cartoon, there were these times where like he was clearly pulling back and only hurting people. And then there were times, there's a lot of murder in this show, by the way, too, which is really funny. And we send this too because they kept saying, like, they don't hurt anybody. It's like, you just murdered somebody and like didn't even think twice about it. But like he's able to like pull back and then sometimes he's like, I can't control these. And so I tried to look up to see like what his powers actually were or like how he was able to control them. And apparently nobody knows. And I'm sure somebody's going to say I'm dumb, and they do know. But well, and talk about retconning. Apparently, originally in the original version of him, it was solar power. So he got his power from he pulled the power from the sun and shot it out of his eyes.
Oh, interesting.
And they eventually changed that because Stan Lee or somebody that was writing it was like, so we basically have a character that's useless in the dark, like, which you could still get solar power when it's dark. I don't know why. It's like solar stuff doesn't quit working because it's dark.
Well, plus that could be interesting. You know, his nighttime could be his kryptonite.
Exactly. So they changed it to where they made it, basically he had unlimited abilities.
Just as we're getting into keeping tabs, Storm from the X-Men shuts down Jonathan. He's currently trying to rejoin us. But that's what you get for talking smack about the X-Men. So, Danae, why don't you go with your keeping tab while we wait for Jonathan?
Also, X-Men related, I ended up doing a little bit of research on Lenore Zan, who voiced Rogue during the X-Men. She just has such a unique voice. So whenever I was singing it, I was really connected to like, wow, what an interesting voice. Like when I was a kid, Storm was interesting to me because of her powers. But now Rogue is interesting to me as a voice actor. Turns out she's on Twitter at Zan Lenore, ZANNLENORE, and she was, to me, pretty fascinating as a person. Like, if you go and you look at her, here's what her Twitter profile says. It's very interesting. Member of Parliament in Canada, ex-deputy House Leader / ministerial assistant to Deputy Premier of NS, award-winning actor, and oh yeah, superhero Rogue in X-Men. So she is in Nova Scotia, and you can find out more about her on lenore.ca. It seems like she's very active in like politics. Just a couple of days ago, she posted something about that said an important message from #the real Rogue of #X-Men. We all have one superpower that can save our lives, sugar, and that's to stay home. So it's kind of cool just to see her, and that's the fun part about how all of this has changed as time has gone on. Now we can go follow our favorite actors or favorite actresses,
right?
Or, you know, go give them that kind of online support. So anyway, it was just something that I got to kind of fangirl out a little bit and go find more. So that was I did other things, other research things, obviously. I mentioned them kind of before, but this one was the big, I guess notably it was trying to figure out if there was an Easter egg for the license plate that turned into that whole rant.
Yeah.
Which didn't yield anything at all. So my favorite find, I suppose, for watching this, for keeping tabs, was Lenore Zan.
I love it. I think Jonathan's back. Jonathan, you missed Danae talking about the voice actress for Rogue, but you can listen to that when you listen to the podcast. What were you saying about your keeping tabs before Storm from the X-Men took down your recording?
I know they didn't want me talking about this stuff. I was trying to figure out the powers of Cyclops and specifically how can he pull back, or how can he figure out how much to shoot from his eyes, and basically nobody knows. So he just basically, his eyes were interdimensional apertures. And,
there you go. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so they could just do basically whatever. His source was unlimited, but it's but where does it?
No, it doesn't matter. Once you say the word interdimensional, it's all good. That's right. It's interdimensional. We're all good.
That's
now.
right.
So yeah, that was what I tried to figure out.
I had a few things. I did some research on what differentiates a brass instrument from a woodwind instrument, which was fun to do. I of course researched all the Sweet Victory stuff from the SpongeBob episode. But the one I wanted to talk about was also from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. At the beginning, they throw a banana at the statue and the logos, and it says, can we throw things at logos now? And then it calls her Sexy Columbia Statue Lady. And somebody in the comments said, oh, you mean the Statue of Liberty? Which is a common misconception. The Columbia logo is not the Statue of Liberty. It is literally something they've been doing for a long time, and did some interesting research. That is actually a model named Jenny Joseph. It is literally the only thing she's ever modeled for. It was in 1992 when they were updating their logos, and they grabbed her from The Office.
And the Statue of Liberty wasn't erected until 1993, guys.
It's true. It's true. And said, hey, here, put on this toga. We're going to take pictures of you. And
which,
she
by
did.
the way, that's something you should never do.
That's right. If somebody comes to your office and is like, hey, can you put on a toga so I can take some pictures of you? You will either be the face of a movie company for 30 years going strong, or you'll be abducted. One of the two. So you just kind of got to weigh, what's going on there. But for Jenny Joseph, it was the first one, and she is now the face of Columbia Pictures because of that photo shoot. So I don't know. I found that fascinating how those kind of things happen just out of nowhere for somebody. But so Jenny Joseph, Sexy Columbia Statue Lady. I wonder if that's on her business card.
Probably, and nobody believes her.
That's right. All right, let's move on to the comment section.
I want to know what you're thinking.
I appreciate your honesty. You're a real straight shooter.
You are the ones who are the ball lickers.
We're going to scour the comments from the videos this week and come up with one that we want to talk about. I'll go first this time. I wanted to mention Maya Galacia in the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs says the room is a lie. She's talking about Flint's room with all the computers and machines and that kind of stuff. She says sometimes we see it through Flint's imagination, but everything there is made out of curtains and cardboard with drawings, and he makes all the noises. I don't know if CinemaSins truly doesn't get this, or if he just decided to pretend it's not the case and just add a sin, but in both scenarios, I'm disappointed. And my question is, what? Really? Does the movie say that? No, I'm genuinely asking. Am I wrong here? I thought all that stuff was real.
I thought so too.
He's an inventor, right? And he's really making invented stuff.
I mean, that's definitely what I took from it. I don't remember the source material super well, but that's what I took from it for sure.
That was just really fascinating to me because I'm like, did we miss something? Like, is this all in his imagination? But I think it's supposed to be real. I mean, I know there's some fun things he does with the door, where he makes the noise for the door, when he's leaving. It has a little Simon Says machine there, and he pushes the button, and he goes, makes the door noise. But I think all those screens and stuff are real.
Well, I went to Cloudy with the Chance of Meatballs fandom wiki, and it says Flint's lab is a laboratory of Flint Lockwood, where he works on his invents and scientific research. It started off as a small, high-tech cubby, and as Flint grew up, it became as big as a town water silo, with the ground area covering most of the backyard except the entrance.
Yeah, I
think
it
doesn't
seem
seem like that's fictional.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I'm glad you looked that up, but it is one of those moments where I'm reading through the comments and I'm like, oh my goodness, and so I wanted to kind of throw that out there and just say, because she just seems so confident. Imagine that, somebody in the comments seeming very confident, but yeah, so I feel a little better now. I feel a little better because I think it is all supposed to be real. I don't think it's fictional. So anyhow, what do you got, Jonathan?
Actually, we pretty much covered mine on the ones I had pulled were all from X-Men, and we talked about it. It was mostly just about people were complaining about us making fun of Gambit, and Danae was too, apparently. And and then the bit that Danae was talking about with Storm's abilities, that's where I pulled my comments from. So we kind of already discussed all that. So.
Nice.
Yep.
I have two. I had one that was a question, and then another question. This one was going to be for Jonathan, both from the X-Men. So the first one says, this is from Keith Marshman, who says, is the screen blurry on the sides for copyright reasons or something? Because if you do not need to do it, stop it. It's not artistic. It's annoying.
No, it's
answer, silly guy. It's a resolution.
That's a formatting. That's a formatting issue. That's the resolution of the however the show was shot itself. Some of the older shows and older movies. The It's a Wonderful Life CinemaSins video had that.
If we stretched that to full screen, it would look like trash, right?
Yeah,
well,
totally.
or you would have black bars.
Well, and what's
I guess just at some point down the road, they decided to have the blurred imagery.
I remember that point down the road because one of the very first TV Sins videos we did was for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I believe. And one of the first sins I wrote was about the black bars. I sinned the aspect ratio. And then after that, we decided to, instead of doing black bars, we filled those with that blur. So I think it works well. I like it.
It's kind of like whenever somebody does, instead of a landscape mode on their phone, they do like the upright. And so then you've got all the space on the left and the right where if you tried to like move out the main picture, it would cut off so much. It's a similar kind of situation. So the blurry is so that it looks better than just having black bars. But then like if you look at Westworld or it fills up the entire screen.
Well, it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned Westworld because it is one of many shows right now that is using aspect ratio to tell the story in unique ways. Because there are some things that happen that are 16:9, and some things that happen that are, I forget what the other one is, that's more cinematic. And those represent different, possibly, these are theories, represent different realities, represent different timelines, those kind of things. And so
that's interesting.
It is very interesting. And I love the way media right now is playing with aspect ratio as a way to enhance the story. So
yeah, there was a series that did that with, if it was in the past, they used a different aspect ratio versus, so that's how you knew that you were in the past as opposed to being in the present. I don't remember what show that was.
There have been several shows that have worked with it. One of the most recent, I'm trying to remember who the actress was. Was it Julia Roberts? Was in a TV show recently.
That's the one. It's Homecoming. That's what I'm thinking of. Yes, that is exactly. Yeah. So whenever they were in the past, it was a different aspect ratio, and it took me like a second to get used to that. But once I did, it was actually kind of cool. But
yeah, no, I'm just loving that. So that made me think of that when you mentioned Westworld. So yeah, very nice.
So, anyways, calm down, Keith K. Marshman. Just calm.
It's a valid question because it is visually it's different, and we don't do it as much with the movies, but occasionally because like I think Dumbo we had to do that.
This question comes from Christophe DeCrane. This is for Jonathan. At the end of X-Men, in the outtakes, the caught me off guard thingy. Where was that from? I recognize it, but I can't quite place it. And I didn't tell Christophe DeCrane where it came from. But it's from Tag.
Yeah.
The church scene in Tag. So is that just something that's in your mind that you saw, or?
Yeah, because I actually I haven't seen that movie. What was the outtake? I'm trying to remember what the outtake was.
It was like I'm sneaking up on him. Like I'm not sneaking up on. It was some sort of like a comment back and forth.
Yeah, and I think that was one of those things where I had something in my head that I wanted to find, and then I ended up coming up on that, and it was like perfect.
Right, it really was. And I've never seen that movie, Tag.
I haven't either. Jeremy saw it, and what he told me didn't really make me interested in watching it. So you're not a big fan of it either, are you?
It's funny enough. It's just not that next level comedy like Game Night where it's funny and also really well done. It's just kind of funny at times. So yeah.
But yeah, no, it was just a lucky happenstance or whatever. That I found it.
So now you know where that's from. And hey, if you're a new listener, from the comments section, just because I said that, hi, we see you. Thanks for not being a dick.
That is our general response to everybody that comes into contact with us.
And that was so all thankful. I had for questions and feedback.
Well, there you go.
I get that with the outtakes though, because when I'm reviewing an edit that I didn't work on, or when I'm watching the video for this, and you guys will do outtakes, and I'll be like, I know that. What is that from? I know that.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I have to
It's one of my favorite things. All right, let's move on to Beyond the Sins.
To infinity and beyond.
Somewhere beyond my wild history.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
We're each going to chat about something else from the world of pop culture that we've seen recently. I guess I'll start. And Danae, I'm going to bring you in on this one because you introduced me to this show, and the show just...
Oh, no.
The show just finished...
Are you taking the one that I'm doing?
Really? Am I? It's just finished its third season, which will be its final season.
Okay.
Do you know? It's on Hulu?
No, I don't.
Do you know?
No,
I didn't think you still watched this show. I know
you're good to go then.
Okay, good.
Carry on.
I'm going to talk about Futureman on Hulu, and this was one that Danae introduced me to. And
it's so raunchy.
Is this the guy from Hunger Games?
Josh Hutcherson.
Yes, it's PETA.
Yeah.
Is it PETA?
Yeah, it is.
Holy crap! This is such a
I've never
crazy
seen it.
show. Oh my god!
This show is Guano Loco. Like it is
so crazy.
So crazy.
I'll check it out.
And it is funny. It is, as far as shows that I laugh at, this is way up there. Like it is, and it's 3 seasons, but they're each short seasons. I think it's like 13 episodes, and the final season is 8 episodes. So there's just over 30 episodes. They're each half an hour long. And the cast is so great together, and this is willing to go so many places that you cannot believe it's going. And I guess that's the other thing I'll say is if you're the kind of person that can be offended, you will be offended at some point in this show. It's
like a little South Parky in that way.
That is exactly the right description. It's very
So what's
South
the
Park.
premise?
So the idea is that this guy beats this video game that was apparently designed by this future warrior clan to seek out somebody who could save the world in their time. And so he beats this video game. They come back in time, and he becomes
he's their savior or whatever.
Yeah, he becomes Futureman, which, by the way, his last name is Futterman, which is hilarious to me. But anyways, so what ends up happening is they realize, oh, this is just some slob on a couch who learned how to beat a video game. He's actually not a leader at all. And so much of the humor comes from the fact that these absolute 100% killers are trying to teach this normal schlub like that he's the savior of the universe kind of thing.
So it's kind of like Chuck.
Yeah, sure.
It's kind of like Chuck mixed with like Last Starfighter.
Yeah.
Only super R-rated. Like I think when they come from the future into the bedroom to retrieve him as like the savior, he's masturbating and he ends up coming all over them as they arrive. So like just be prepared for everything because anything
also meets
goes.
American Pie.
Yeah. Something About Mary meets South Park meets Chuck. Yeah, something like that.
And it's also like it also has like a low budget kind of feel to
Definitely.
it, where I think in season 2 specifically, it's just like the locations are just anyway, I totally forgot about it. I need to go back and revisit it, especially since it's wrapping up.
Well, I remember when it first started, they would show like it was at theaters before the previews and stuff, they'd have like that reel of whatever. I don't even know what they call it now. I can't remember what the company is, but they just have like, they go behind the scenes of movies and they do all this different stuff. And then one of the things they showed a trailer for this show all this. I thought it was a joke. Like I just thought it was.
No, it is.
Because who are the other main people in it? It's who's in it besides Josh Hutcherson?
Nobody you've probably heard of other than Haley Joel Osment is in it for a hot second, and he's great.
For some reason, I was thinking like the two people that like work with him or whatever were somebody. Maybe not, but I just remember thinking like it felt almost like an SNL like parody.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculousness. I'm so glad you brought that one back up.
Yeah, and here's the final thing I have to say. Other than the fact that this is easily the dirtiest thing I've ever recommended in any way, shape, form, or whatever.
Dirtier than Big Mouth?
That's interesting.
Or BoJack?
So, I mean, BoJack's not that dirty. Big Mouth is, but Big Mouth is like dirty in a way that's important almost. Like the discussions in there mean something. Like this is more dirty to be clever, which is why I like it. Like I don't like shock humor just because it's shock humor. What I enjoy is when it's actually clever shock humor. You know what I like? When the clever is the point. The shock is just the delivery device, kind of idea.
It's interesting though that the show you don't find dirty has horses having sex with like humans and cats.
Well, that's just part of that universe.
It's fine.
It's
a Thursday
world. Yeah,
it's a humanoid horse.
Yeah, exactly.
It has a 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb and 91% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Open your mind to bestiality.
Yeah,
that's actually really well received. 94% Google users like this show.
So
I've heard good stuff about it. I hadn't gotten around to watching it.
So other than it's the dirtiest thing I've ever recommended, it is the way this series finishes, because this is the series finale, not just the season finale for season 3.
Is it similar to how PETA finishes in the first episode?
No. It is the best finish to a series I think I've ever seen.
I'm excited to watch it.
I love, and I'm not talking about necessarily the way the plot wraps up. I'm talking about literally the way they finish this show is one of my favorite things I've ever seen. I loved it so much.
I'm excited. Okay, I'm going to go watch it. It's on Hulu, you said?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So Futureman season 3, final season is out, and
can I piggyback on yours?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Because I have another kind of sci-fi like one that I would like to recommend, and it's called The Rook on Stars. So I picked up Stars recently. We added it to our YouTube TV just to kind of like get another like set of channels, and I just put it on one day, and I had it on while I was packing my house, and so I was just going from room to room, and I binged the entire series, and so I actually really liked it. It doesn't have like a super huge following. It's like a 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb. I haven't really looked into it, but it reminds me a little bit of Blind Spot in a way, where you kind of start off the entire series where your main character, whose name is Miffany, like Tiffany but with an M, and she is like doesn't remember anything, and so you're figuring out what's going on, and in this sort of a sci-fi mystery world kind of as the show goes on, so you're not quite sure who's a bad guy, who's a good guy, what did the person who doesn't have a memory do before her memory was wiped, and so she's really trying to kind of figure it out. I think I can understand why some people would give it lower rankings, because I feel like the end of the series, because it's just like, I think it's just one season, and I don't know that they're releasing more because it's based on a book, so I think it's kind of done, which is sort of nice to be able to recommend, just like a little simple, I'm not going to say low budget sci-fi watch, because I actually really enjoyed how this thing was shot. There's some really beautiful cinematography in here and just really pretty angles. Like whoever was the people who are directing this have a really beautiful eye. I actually several times kind of stopped and watched a scene a couple of times because I was like, that's really beautiful. So it's very artistic in that way. But anyways, the drive of watching this for me is the mystery, like what's happening. And I would say that maybe the reveals and the build up at the end maybe aren't as climactic and cinematic as I thought that they would be, and perhaps if I was reading the book it would be a little bit different, but I liked the acting in it. I thought it was really interesting. I liked the premise of it. These this definitely the sci-fi nature of this is sort of like a little bit X-Men like in a way, just to kind of give you like a
That's
little
what
bit.
I was about to ask you that, because I read this book, but I haven't seen the show. But I also read another book around the same time called The Power, and I always get both of those confused.
Yeah. So, and I don't want to give a lot away because that's part of the fun of watching this, and since it's not going to potentially be going anywhere, I won't tell you anything else. But there were a couple of really interesting reveals in the sci-fi nature of this show that I liked a lot. I think one of the big downs for me, so if you guys end up watching it and you want to give me your feedback, I'd love it. And I love, by the way, I love hearing from you guys on Twitter, the DMs of you trying podcasts or like games or everything that's recommended. So you're always welcome to check it out and tell me what you think. I love your opinions.
That's DENEESAYS.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's me. And we'll repeat it again here in just a second too. But one of the things that kind of bugged me is, and this probably has to happen for pacing of a show versus maybe like reading a book, there's a lot of convenience in this. So if that bothers you, like plot convenience, like moving things along, this would be an easily cinnable show. My sin brain was lit throughout probably the first 3 or 4 episodes because there's so many things that just don't make sense. And in that way,
I mean, the marijuana probably helped with that too, though, right? I mean...
like, and you know how like in I don't know if you guys did watch Blind Spot, but the whole thing of that is she's got all these tattoos on her body that give clues, and if you think about it, it's kind of cool to think about that way. But how do you know which tattoo you're going to investigate next? And so as she's trying to unfold the mystery of who she is and what she is and who the people around her are and her role in all of it, it's like, man, it sure is convenient that you found that piece of paper right there, isn't it? You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff you have to sort of suspend a bit to enjoy it, which is what I did because it was a great background watch. It kept me very, very entertained. So that's again
cool.
called The Rook, and it is on, or it's called The Rook on Stars.
We just picked up Stars recently too, because they're offering a lot of these companies are offering, a lot of these streaming services are offering deals right now, and I think they were like $25 for like 6 months. So like, sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're thinking about doing it anyway,
there.
I'd go for it because there's some other shows on Stars that's really that are good too, and so I plan on watching some more, but I usually don't have a show to recommend for you. So
cool.
There you go.
What about you, Jonathan?
What am I doing? Well, let me tell you about what I'm doing if I can pull this up, because now I all of a sudden forgot what I was going to talk about.
Reminded me of yes. That reminded me of the Sin in the X-Men videos. Like, yes, because all mutants narrate their powers as they're doing them. That's a thing.
Yeah, that was such a good one, Jonathan.
So weird. No, so I started watching that. I feel like Aaron recommending Apple TV. Apple Plus or whatever. I don't know how many people that listen to us subscribe to Shudder, but if you do subscribe to Shudder, which is owned by AMC, so I will say AMC might show this eventually, because I know that Shudder had a show premiere last year. It was a Creep Show. It was an anthology series that AMC is going to be showing later this year. So maybe they'll show this eventually if you don't have Shudder. But Shudder's only like $5 a month, and you can get like a free 30 days if this sounds interesting to you. But they just debuted a show called Cursed Films, and it is a documentary series, I guess, talking about specific films that have been, some people believe have curses associated with them. The third episode was Poltergeist, which is probably the most popular one I think a lot of people know about, where, there were cast members that died, and there were just things around, including the main little girl died after they shot the third one from a bowel obstruction. But there was, and then Dominic Dunn, who played the sister in the first Poltergeist, she was murdered by her boyfriend right after they shot the first one. And then there were some other people that died. A couple of them, because I'll tell you right now, I don't believe really in curses, so I definitely don't really necessarily believe that these films are cursed, because a lot of these are weird. Like, one guy was like 95 and he died shortly after they filmed. But it's like, yeah, but he was also 95. But I still find it really interesting because there are a lot of people that really believe this stuff. And also the series is going into like just what exactly, like what people believe curses are, and how that could have, like, I guess, affect a film that might be about something that might get itself cursed. The other 2 episodes they've aired so far were The Exorcist and The Omen. So they talk a lot about religion and, and where curses originated from and things like that. So it's pretty interesting. They're only going to have 5 episodes, though. I know one of the last ones is going to be The Crow. I don't remember what the other one is they're going to do. But I've seen the first 3, and I don't know. It's really entertaining. It's really interesting. I've kind of really started getting into these documentary series on stuff like this, although I'm not watching Tiger King, so don't ask. But this was just something that I even though I don't believe in it, I found the subject matter fascinating.
Right.
And it is still interesting. Like The Omen is really weird. Like Gregory Peck almost died like twice, and it was based on these flights that he was supposed to take coming to film, and like something even crashed right by a sign. I think one of the planes crashed right by a sign wherever they were, whatever country they were in, and it was the sign said Omen, but it was 2 M's. But then what was weirder, it was mile marker 666. It was just weird stuff like that, you know.
Interesting.
And, so it's pretty fascinating.
What's the name of the show again?
It's called Cursed Films.
Well, that makes sense.
And
that's
it's
what
available on Shudder.
Very nice. That's going to wrap it up for Behind the Sins this week. Don't forget to make sure you are subscribed and go ahead and leave a comment or rating as well. Don't forget you can hang out with us on Twitter. We're at CinemaSins BTS on Twitter. Also, personally, if you want to DM us or hang out with us, I'm at Aaron Dicer. She is at Danae Says.
DENEESAYS.
And he is at Sam Loomis 13. So for Jonathan Watkins, Danae Hughes, and myself, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Send any feedback to behindthesinspod@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe or message us at Twitter. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
I can see you, but I cannot hear you because you aren't on Discord yet.
Shut your mouth hole. I am not ready. Hi.
Hello.
Ping pong.
Ping pong.
Who's the fool now, fool? I'm eating pork in a closet. What does that mean?
The little known sequel to the song In the Closet, Eating Pork in a Closet.
We drive to the new house to drop off the refrigerator so that we can plug it in and have our food somewhere overnight because we didn't take possession of the house until the next day.
Yeah.
And while we're there waiting for the movers to show up to unpack the refrigerator, we get a call from the people who are buying our house. They're like, "Where's the refrigerator? You sold us the house with the refrigerator in it. Where is it?" And somehow our realtor, we totally missed this, had sold our house that included our refrigerator. We had to ask my dad, and my husband and my dad put the refrigerator from the moving truck onto our trailer and drove it 35 miles back to our old house to drop it off for them. And then we had to figure out where we're going to put all of our extra food and freezer items that now we couldn't put anywhere. It was just absolutely crazy.
But you don't have a refrigerator. Like, you don't have anything that just keeps stuff cold. You only have a freezer.
Good question. Our house does have a refrigerator in the kitchen. We always have one we had one in the garage for overflow.
I see what you're saying.
This is an Ozark staple. Everybody's got a fridge in the garage too. It's
no, they do here. We don't because we had dogs for the longest time that lived in our garages because we set our garages up as kennel runs because we had so many dogs.
Do they know how to open the fridge?
I found 3 boxes of my old electronics, so I've been plugging them all in to see what still works, finding old pictures. So I had a good 15-minute cry yesterday or the day before because I found pictures of my Saint Bernard when she was a puppy. I thought I lost him.
Aww.
It was so cool. I turned on my really old computer, and I can't even get them off of this computer. It's so old there isn't even a USB port on it. I have to go get a floppy disk. I've really had a good time opening up these old boxes, being like, "Oh my God, it's my first laptop and it weighs 75 pounds."
We should do at some point where somebody is just store this away in case you're the one sending this movie. If there's a movie and somebody is searching for their computer, can we do a scene does not contain a laptop sin? Happy Easter, guys.
Hey, happy Easter.
Yeah, I saw Danae's tweet about that. I've never really celebrated Easter, so this is just like, oh, it's Sunday.
Yeah, for us, it's kind of like I've celebrated Easter with my family. You know, you go for a family dinner or whatever.
We do
but
that,
then
yes.
Last year with Iris, she was kind of too young to do anything like traditional.
Mm-hmm.
We did get her, my mom crocheted her this really big Easter basket that's cute and it looks like a bunny. And so we gave that to her, but she didn't have much interest in it. But this year she's almost 3, so she's definitely like could go around and find Easter eggs and or enjoy company. So we're going to do something really small later on today, but for the most part,
cool.
Like we just totally forgot to even plan to shop for a ham or anything. So we're like, well, I guess we're going to have tilapia for dinner.
Yeah, my boys are all into the Easter egg hunt. It's one of their favorite things every year. And
are you joking?
Yeah, you do a crazy elaborate one.
No, I do a
something
huge elaborate.
Right?
Like okay. Are we going to go through? Let's go through this. So basically, how it works
sure,
is this.
No, I'm interested.
With my 4 boys, they each have 5 eggs. So we hide a total of 20 eggs. In a given room, and I take time and really get creative with the hiding spaces and kind of where they might be. And so then we release them youngest to oldest. The youngest, and there's also a chocolate bunny, which is larger. And then there's a medium size hidden thing, which is not in an egg, but it's usually like a candy bar or a piece of candy, something like that. And so then we release them one at a time, and they each get 5 minutes before the next person goes. So the youngest goes and gets 5 minutes to find as many, of his 5 eggs and his chocolate bunny and his medium-sized, gift.
And he's 15?
Yeah, he's 15 now. And so then after 5 minutes, my second youngest goes. Then after 5 minutes, my third youngest. And so by the time it gets to my oldest, like it's the hardest, stuff that's there. But they're all searching together for a lot of this because I'm really good at hiding stuff. Let me just say, every year this event goes for at least an hour where they're searching and trying to find stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
You have a lot of family traditions. You make me feel lazy.
I know, right?
I feel like we have some, but then I hear Aaron's like every Christmas, it's like Christmas Eve, they do like 8 things.
It's true. It's true. Well,
and then they have like their family vacations that they do.
Listen, here's the deal. I've been doing it longer.
Vacations.
They just pile up over the years. That's all that happens. Like, we weren't watching.
Well, and there's only 3 of us.
But you keep them going. That's the impressive thing. They might pile up, but you're like, you know what? I'm going to do this next year. For me, I'm like, what did I do last year? Probably just took a nap. Let's just do an Easter nap.
You already mentioned one. Now you've got Easter tilapia. Now it's a thing. All you have to do is remember to do tilapia every Easter.
It's not really going to happen.
Well, like Aaron and I's birthday's coming up.
That's right, it is.
Like at the end of May, and we're probably still going to be. I doubt we'll probably still be stuck in the house at that point.
I don't
that's
know, man.
What it's looking like.
Let's just be hopeful for Memorial Day / the Aaron Jonathan birthday party. It'll be like Memorial Day, our birthday, and like the end of self-isolation all in one. Let's do this thing.
My daughter says I'm not cool, and she's sitting there like watching YouTube, and I'm like, you realize I have a YouTube channel, right? She's like, it's different. So.
You realize I write jokes that millions of people laugh at on your little YouTube channel.
I mistakenly asked the 20-some-year-old movers that came to move our house if they like knew about CinemaSins, and they're like, no. And I was like, okay, cool.
You're
and
like,
they're like, why? And I said, no reason. I was just wondering.
This pride comes before the fall. It's like totally.
Like, just curious. I'm just polling the audience.
Hey guys, ever heard of CinemaSins? No. Oh, okay. Carry on. I told you about my nephew at Thanksgiving, didn't I? My nephew at our Michigan Thanksgiving, which we do every other year, is
another tradition.
Tradition.
Yeah, Thanksgiving.
So, anyways,
never even heard of Thanksgiving until I met Aaron Dicer.
My 12-year-old nephew literally spent the day after Thanksgiving, the Friday after Thanksgiving, watching CinemaSins morning to night, just on rotation, just sitting there, just watching them roll through. And I'd walk by every once in a while, and it would be one of the CinemaSins video. And at one point during the day, I was like, "Hey, do you know what I do for a living?" Hey, can we call this Easter Sequeaster?
No.
Okay.
No, because it sounds way too much like
sound good.
Secrete.
I feel like I'm sequestered.
The sound is just not good.
Sequestered. I feel like we're all sequestered.
Why isn't it just sequester?
Happy
That's
Sequeaster.
the actual word.
It's like secrete and queef together with Easter. It's so weird.
No, it's just sequestered and Easter together. Sequestered. Come on, it's perfect.
Here's the real question I have for you guys. Can you hear my daughter screaming?
No.
Cool. So far, my little...
Oh, just heard it there.
I think the only reason I heard it though is because you mentioned it.
Yeah, and we all were quiet.
I would never have thought that's what that was, and
No.
it wasn't even that loud. Was she screaming like she's unhappy, or
I was surprised to hear her drop the F-bomb, but I guess not with you in the house. But do you need a mom break?
She's screaming, "Leave me alone! Leave me alone!"
If you need to go check on her, go check on her.
That's all right. We'll be here sequestered. Oh, it's Iris.
Well, I'm in here recording.
Hi, Iris.
Hello. What's
Hi,
up, Iris?
Can you see Aaron?
Hi.
Hi. Say hello.
And the stranger that you don't know. What's up?
You okay? You feeling better?
Oh, that is pitiful.
That is precious. Iris, you're precious. Yeah.
Wait, see, can you hear Aaron say hi? Say hi, Aaron. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Iris.
Say hi, Jonathan. Hi, Jonathan.
Well, hi.
So then I'm Zooming with my family at 6, and then Zooming with Jen's family at 7, and then Zooming with friends at 8. So,
oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm going to get done with this and just stare at the television for probably 6 hours because...
Hey, since we're still in the outtake section, I have an update that I want to give to everybody before they go away.
Okay. Do you want this to be the last outtake?
No, I don't care. I think the last outtake should be something funny, and I don't think this is going to be funny.
Okay, say something funny then, and we'll make that the last outtake.
Hey, guys, your behind-the-scenes stickers have been sent.
Wait. So is the brr, is that supposed to be the final outtake, or I don't understand.
I mean, you said to make it funny.
I was saying go ahead and say something completely unrelated that's funny.
Oh.
And then we'll use that as the last. Never mind though, because that works. That completely works.